growing up in the hills of North Carolina, I didn't know what peer pressure was. I did what people told me to do, whether they were peers or superiors. And in fact, I was so good at it that when I missed school for the first time when I was in the 4th grade, I cried because the bus didn't pick me up. I had to stay at home. But I was particularly fascinated by the fair sex. And my first experience with that was not personal, but my teenage uncle was trying to impress the girl next door, and I was 4 at the time, but I thought something strange was going on between them, and he was singing at first, and that didn't seem to do anything, and then he started yelling, you old lady, you, and then she went running, and I thought I'd run too if somebody said that to me, because later I realized they called him yodeling. The next year, when I was 5, I had a friend, I don't remember her name because it turned out to be such a horrible experience, but it was very beautiful at first, and we played together, and one day she said, would you marry me? And I thought, well, that made sense, and I said, yeah, we'll do that. And she said we ought to wait a while until we get a little older, and I thought, well, yeah, we'll wait a few weeks for that. And so it was 2 or 3 weeks after that I went over to play with her, and her mom said, oh, she's not here. She's gone off with her husband. She just got married. And I thought, she was toying with my affection. It was such a traumatic experience. I forgot her name. But I was still at 5 when I had a wonderful experience with Pauline Mickey. And we were sitting under the apple tree, and there were some apples up there, and she said, Reid, why don't you go up and get me an apple? I said, okay. I thought they were awful green, but I went up and I tried to pull the apple, but it was too green to let go, and I fell, but I kind of lodged myself right by a nest. And I said, Pauline, there's a bird's nest up here. She said, any birdies in it? I said, no, just some eggs. Well, bring one of them down so I can see it. Well, I didn't want to do that because the mama bird would feel bad about that. But now come on and do it now. So I brought it down. But on the way down, it broke. It fell and broke. And I said, that's terrible. She said, go up and get another one. I said, why? She said, so I can break it. I said, why don't you go up there? She said, I can't. I said, why not? She said, I'm a girl. I was already a feminist by then, and I didn't know why she couldn't. But she convinced me that I ought to do it, so I went up and so she could break it, so she could see the little stuff in it. I felt terrible about that, but then I gave in to that. But the next experience was when I was 6, and we moved to another place, and the girl next door was named Frances Crow, and she was only 5. She had curly blonde hair, and she had twisted ear and blue eyes. And she was so sweet. We played, and one day she said to me, will you go in the garage with me, Reid? Yeah. She said, I want to show you something. Okay. And then we sat down on this bench, and she looked at me, she put her hands on my face and kissed me right on the lips. And that was my first non-family kiss. And that one, I didn't worry about it at all. That was kind of nice. Well, this went on, but I found myself really attracted to my great Uncle Sam, who lived further up in the mountains, and he was so opposite from me. He'd do nothing that anyone expected of him. No peer pressure at all. In fact, his name was Uncle Sammy Jane. I should explain to you. The reason we call him Jane, there's so many Sam Gilberts up there that they had to separate them from each other, so his mama's name was Jane, so they called him Sammy Jane. And to this day, he's gone a long time ago, but his grandkids still remember Papa Sammy Jane. So Uncle Sammy Jane was so ornery. Now his twin brothers, who were my granddaddy and his twin brother, they were Plymouth Baptist preachers, and the pressure on Uncle Sammy Jane would do the same thing. But he looked at what they were doing, he says, they're so dour and doleful, if that's what religion does for you, now you got time for it. Well, that was kind of funny to me. But once years later, my daddy and I went to see him, and he was still playing jokes on people, not doing what people expected, particularly when it came to religion. And we were sitting in his front yard, and he said to my daddy, Pete, Pete, you know, they were addition on the High Point Church. Daddy said, yeah, Uncle Sammy Jane, how's it going? Oh, they just got the underpinning finished, and that's a foundation. And he was with it. You know what some fool done last night, Pete? And that is on Sunday afternoon. What was that, Uncle Sammy Jane? Some fool come by there last night with whiskey bottles and beer bottles and liquor bottles all around that underpinning. Wasn't that terrible? They said, Uncle Sammy Jane, who do it? Oh, I ain't got no notion in the world. We picked up his spittle, and we knew he'd done it the night before. That's just the way it was. He cussed when he had to and drank when he wanted to. Well, when I finished high school, I went off to college, and my roommate was a friend who was in high school with me, and we went to Duke University. And there was some pressure there to join the fraternities. Well, I didn't do that because I don't know whether it was because I didn't like it or whether it was just too costly, because I was a farmer, tobacco farmer from the hills, and I couldn't afford that kind of thing. In fact, even the independents at Duke were organized. And I remember the president of Independence was Joe Kennedy. He said, Reid, I want you to join the independents. I said, well, what do you do? He said, well, we also do. We have a high homecoming queen. I said, well, you're just a cheap fraternity. Why don't you admit it? I don't have to join with the independents. I already am one. So I didn't join the independents. But now, the dormitory where we were, there was a lot of drinking going on, and it was illegal at Duke at that time, not that way now, but to be drinking. But all the boys would be drinking on the weekends, and on Monday morning go down to shave, and all that filthy, sticky, sweet stuff was in the garbage cans. And of course, that the way you didn't know who did it, you know. But also, we were so different, Bernie and I were so different from the other fellows because we were the only North Carolina boys in that dormitory. All of the rest of them were Yankees. And we realized that we were very different from them. It didn't take us long to realize that as they came further south, as they come further south, the lower the local IQ. And by the time they crossed the Virginia-North Carolina line, they weren't sure whether we were studying at Duke or Duke was studying us because they had a good primate department. And sometimes the door would be open, the boy from Brooklyn would come in and stand by the door, and we say, come sit down. Oh, I don't want to sit down, I want to listen to you talk. So we'd talk. Well, in the middle of the winter, Bernie was gone somewhere, and I was studying, but I tried to get the room cooled off because I couldn't sleep in a hot room. So I opened the door to the hallway and opened the windows, and a fellow by the name of Pete from New Jersey, he came in and he said, Reid, it's cold in here. And I don't know why I did it to poor Pete, but I put on my best mountain accent and I said, I know it, Pete, I can't get no warm in here. There ain't no stove in here. And I could tell I'd caught him. You know, it's like a good fisherman, you got one, and I got him. But he said, Reid, you have the door open and the windows open. I said, well, yeah, there ain't no way to get no heat in here, so it's hot out in the hallway, and I'll get a current coming through here, and then I'll close the windows and I'll get some warm in here. Reid, you have to get your heat from the radiator. Pete, you know, put on the light. Now, there's no radiator. Radiator's an automobile. Ain't no radiator in here. So he reached and he turned on that little knob, and it started sizzling. And I said, turn the blame thing, it's going to blow up, Pete. Every time I try to find where that little knob said, it sizzles. Now, it's going to blow up. He said, Reid, that's where you get your heat. I said, now, Pete, you'll pull my leg. You can't put the firewood in there. You can't get the ashes out. It ain't got a stove pipe. Poor Pete wandered out of the room, and I didn't have the heart to tell him I'd been funning with him. But the next morning, I went up to shave, and I could tell the tail was out. Because the boys were looking in the mirror, and they try not to see someone, you know, but they have to see themselves. And I could tell they were trying to avoid any contact with me. So I thought I might as well finish the story. So I said, you know, this sure is a convenient room. And one of them mentioned, say, what you mean? I said, you know them springs over the wall over there? You pull that little handle down, put your foot in it, it wrenches your foot right off. But I said, you know, that water, that spring water ain't nearly as good to drink as the mountain water, spring water where I come from. And by that time, they knew I was pulling a leg. Well, you know, I finished, and a couple of years came back on the campus, and I saw Pete. He was getting his undergraduate degree. His hair turned white, but I didn't take no credit for that.